Hi everyone, Stephanie Green here from Pursuit Advisors. Welcome to our latest webinar, KPIs, know the measures that matter. So just a quick walkthrough of our agenda today. First off, I'll talk about today's presenters. Then we'll have a recap of the last session we held. We'll talk about what are KPIs and why they're important. Go through a few examples for you, talk about how we're going to monitor them, and then have some questions at the end. So first off, I'll just do a quick introduction. So I've got myself, Stephanie here. I'm a senior advisor at Pursuit Advisors, and I also wear the marketing hat for the business. And Paul Pratt here is presenting with me. He's our CEO and director, and he also wears the sales and HR hats for our business. So Paul, would you like to walk us through a recap of the last session we had?
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for the intro, Steph, and thank you, Steph, for taking the time to put this together and join us today. So Steph's the one that's put all the time into putting this together, and I'm just joining to share my insight around KPIs and bits and pieces. And also, Steph, 7 years with our business today, which is a big milestone. So thank you for 7 years of service with Pursuit.
Thanks, Paul. It's been a good 7 years. It's gone very fast.
It does. It goes very quickly. Life has changed a lot for yourself in 7 years, that's for sure.
Definitely, yep.
So last session back last month was around budgeting and bits and pieces. So just some key things that we've spoken about last session was about making sure you're paying yourself first, so not last. So a real key point there is making sure you're focused on ensuring that you're looking after number one, which is yourself and your family, and then using a bottom-up budgeting process to achieve. And then looking at things like what your fixed costs are, what control you can have over your fixed costs, what a break-even point is for your business, difference between profit and cash. So businesses can be quite profitable, but without cash, and especially now in the current environment, cash is king, which is really important to being there. And so that was a bit of a recap from what we covered off on last month. So hopefully those that were on last month have been able to put that into action in their business.
Okay, so jump straight into what are KPIs. So as I've got here on the screen, KPIs are key performance indicators. They're basically measures that show how well your business is performing against its goals. So the way I like to think about it is the KPIs are like your signposts on a hike. So if you are meeting those KPIs, your business is on the right path to reach its goals. If you aren't hitting those KPIs though, you're going to find yourself lost in the woods basically. So we talk about KPIs straight after our budgeting session for a reason. So your budget is really the plan for your business. And these KPIs that we're talking about are going to keep you on the right path to meet that budget and to meet that goal that you've got. Now down the bottom here, you'll notice that I've got KPIs need to be smart. Don't know how many of you have talked about SMART KPIs before, so I'll go over it quickly in a summary. So they need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be achievable, relevant, and time-driven. So I'll give you a bit of an example on why being a SMART KPI is so important. Let's just say your sales target for the year is to increase your turnover by $100,000. And you've set the KPI of sell more products. If you sell even $1 more, technically you're reaching that KPI, but you don't have a chance of reaching your target of the $100,000 increase. So it's relevant to your sales, but it's not going to get you to your goal. It's not a measurable and time-driven target, basically. So if you change that target from sell more product to increase your turnover by $2,000 each week, you're going to be able to track that a lot easier and find out if you're actually on path to hit that $100,000 goal that you've got. Now, moving on to critical drivers. Critical drivers really tie in well with KPIs because we've got your KPI, which is what you want to achieve, and the critical driver is what needs to be done in order to achieve that KPI. It's the behaviours that need to occur on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make that goal a reality. I'm going to have a look at a bit of a personal goal example for this one. So, Paul, you've set yourself a goal to run a half marathon in under 90 minutes. Now, to achieve this goal, Paul, you set a KPI of improving your average KPH by 0.1 per month. Now, for you to hit that KPI, what are the day-to-day or week-to-week behaviours that you need to show to get there?
Yeah, so it's a good question, Steph, and it's very easy to sit there and go, yeah, I want to achieve something in bits and pieces, but without putting in place the actual behaviours to get towards that, we're very unlikely to do that. So I broke it down, and about 12 months ago, it was taking me call it 5 minutes per K. So a bit over 100 minutes to run a half marathon distance. So to break that down, I need to improve my time by about 30 odd seconds per kilometre, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is over 21 kilometres. So what I put in place was a plan across a whole 12 months. And the critical drivers for me was making sure that I was running a certain amount of kilometres per week at a certain speed, but really just making sure that I was getting up and running either morning or evening at least 3 times a week at certain distances. So if I hadn't displayed those behaviours and then decided last Sunday to go out and give it a crack without doing that, I know I wouldn't have been able to achieve my goal. And I'm happy to say, and it's the first time I've probably shared that in an open environment, I actually achieved that goal on Sunday just gone. So broke 90 minutes for a half marathon with a longer term aim to run a 3-hour marathon, or under 3-hour marathon is a longer term aim. So now I've ticked off that goal. I need to work out what my behaviours need to be and how long I need to input those behaviours in place to achieve that larger goal now.
Yeah, you can see that those critical drivers are really essential there, and good work, Paul, on meeting that goal.
Thanks, Steph. I'll just get ready for that Pursuit versus Paul challenge later in the year. So I've got to take you guys on, so I need to be at optimum performance to do that.
For those who don't know, the Pursuit versus Paul is us as a team. A Pursuit will all be versing Paul in a relay style race, and I still think Paul's got the better chance of winning.
I hope so. I don't want to lose. I don't like losing.
So as Paul highlighted there, while it's not too hard to set a goal and then to set the indicators it's going to track your progress to getting to that goal, committing to those behaviours, those critical drivers, that's where the real work comes in. That's where you need the commitment. Now, I'm going to hand over to Paul now to start us off on some examples. And first, we'll have a look at our 10 hat structure that we continue to bring up through our webinar series.
Thanks, Steph, and yeah, thanks for sharing the 10 hats there on the screen. So the 10 hats is the filter we use when we're talking about our business, from the leaders in our business and the project that we work on, to the point where we set up our calendar in these colours to reflect the activities we're doing when we're wearing a certain hat in our businesses. So when we talk about some critical drivers and KPIs around each of these hats today, what we're going to do is we're thinking about what you need to actually have in your calendar, which is the critical drivers, so the specific time and activities you need to perform on a regular basis to do that. So, Steph, if you wanted to think about a HR one, for example, so a big one in a HR space is around looking at ensuring that your team turnover is at a certain point. Or let's say in this example, last year you had a 20% turnover of staff in the previous 12 months. And let's say you wanted to reduce that to 10%. That's an ambitious KPI, but one that's very relevant for the business. Like, we know the cost of losing an employee is significant, so you should be investing in your team and doing those things to ensure that you're looking after your team members and supporting them, and you don't grow a business, you grow the people within your business there. So a critical driver would be to hold monthly performance reviews with your team members. So each individual team member, making sure your calendar has that time planned out for the whole 12 months, and you're regularly catching up with your team members to talk to them. Some people might do that more often, so they might feel that monthly is too big a gap, especially on, say, new employees in induction phase and onboarding. And some might say that's too often. So some people might say, well, it's bi-monthly. So it's up to you what works in your business. But a critical driver I know in our business is to ensure that we're holding monthly performance reviews with our team members, not just to hit that KPI of reducing team turnover, but we know the benefits of having a stable team. And example, Steph, with someone like yourself in our business for 7 years, that is just adds so much value to your business if you invest in your team.
That's right, Paul. And it's definitely from a team member perspective as well. It's good to be able to have those chats on a regular basis to help just improve your day-to-day operations. It really changes your focus and keeps you sharp, basically.
Thanks, Steph. I'm going to let you chat about marketing as our marketing leader in our business.
Thanks, Paul. So marketing here, what we're talking about in this specific example is we're looking at brand awareness. So when you are setting your KPIs, you need to make sure that you're setting it based on the focus that you're looking at. So if I was looking at generating leads as my focus, this KPI wouldn't really be relevant. But if we're just looking at a brand awareness, so getting your name out there kind of view, then this is what we're going to look at. So for this one, we've got a KPI of achieving X number of interactions on your social media posts per month. So the more interactions you get, the more that post is getting out there. It's getting seen by more people. And then hopefully you're going to get more and more people like the page and get your name out there further. So the critical driver to getting this KPI is to spend an hour a week creating and scheduling posts. If you're not dedicating that time to sit down and create the content to put out there, your page is going to go a bit stale. You might not have as many people visiting, and you want that visibility. All right, Paul, I'll hand over to you for the operations example.
Great example, Steph. And marketing in these times, depending on what business you're in, is super important on thinking about what's the most appropriate marketing you're doing from brand awareness. So I know some businesses get their work from networking events and bits and pieces and the like. Those things aren't happening because of COVID. So thinking about where you need to pivot to make your marketing and brand awareness relevant in the current environment is really important. On operations basis, so this is around productivity. So let's say you're trying to achieve a certain level of productivity, so making sure a certain number of jobs are completed per month to deliver revenue targets and then profitability to your business, thinking back to budgeting that we did last session. One of the critical drivers there, so you can have more than one critical driver that helps achieve the KPI, but one here is making sure that you have dedicated time put aside on a daily and weekly basis to review your job board. So think about someone in the construction game that might be trying to say, well, over the next month, they want to complete two of their builds. What do they got to do on a daily basis? So they need to review their job board, see where their trades are at, chat to their team, make sure they're going out to the right sites at the right time to achieve that. So putting that time aside in the calendar and making sure your team's aware of those behaviours is really important.
Good points, Paul. I'll let you handle this sales one as well.
Okay, on a sales basis, so let's just thinking at the minute you've got a really stable client base, but we're in an industry now where revenue is really important. You've had a few clients drop off because of the capacity to pay, or businesses are closed down, or potentially have had to pivot and no longer require your services. But you have a really strong client base, so your goal is to increase the number of upsells to your existing client for the services you provide. And that's taking into account you've built appropriate products and services to offer to those clients as well in these times, is making sure having time put aside to have that critical driver, so that behaviour, to have regular interactions with clients. So it might be putting aside half an hour 3 times a week to make a proactive call to a client. So then across a month, you put time aside to contact 12 of your existing clients to check in on them and see if there's the opportunity for you to work with them in a greater capacity. So that KPI has a greater chance of being achieved if you put the time aside to display that behaviour. And
Okay. Finance. So when we're looking at finance here, we're looking at getting paid. This is our focus. Now, we've gone with a bit of a different one than your standard debtor days for this KPI. So the KPI we're looking at is the number of debtors. So rather than the days, we're looking at the number of actual customers you've got who have gone outside your payments terms in the last month. So the reason we're focusing on the number rather than the debtor days is you could have those couple of clients who are going outside their terms month after month after month, which could be changing your debtor day result. But it could be that the rest of your debtors are paying on time and it's not something to worry about. Or obviously with everything that's going on at the moment, you might find that people are a bit more cash strapped and they are pushing the debtor terms a bit more. So you can start to pick up that trend. In that term, we want to look at the critical driver of weekly debtor communication. So I'm hoping that everyone here has got their debtor policy in place, which talks about what they're going to do on a week-to-week basis in terms of debtor communication, when they're going to start following up or looking at debt collection and things like that, as well as if you need to look at, for example, a direct debit arrangement to try and get those debtor terms back on track.
Thanks, Steph. And as flagged before, cash is really important in the current times we're in. The government is stimulating the economy with JobKeeper and other sorts of funding and the like, but that will turn off at some point. So cash is going to be really important in your business going forward. Also being mindful, being respectful to the clients and your customers, because some businesses have been really severely impacted by lockdowns and then open back up and lockdowns again. So making sure that communication's done in a respectful manner and understanding their circumstances and working with them is really important to keep in mind.
It's a bit of a balancing act at the moment to, try and not be too harsh with those customers that are struggling, but also you've got to look after your own business and still get that money in to keep your business going.
Yeah, spot on, Steph. And now, how do we measure KPIs, Steph?
We'll have a chat about that now, Paul. So when you've set your KPIs, it's all good to have them set, but if you don't look at them again, you've wasted your time. You need to make sure that you're monitoring them and you're looking at them constantly so that they're actually going to give you a benefit. So we've got three main options that I want to talk about here in how to monitor your KPIs. First off, we've got automate. So there's systems out there. So if we have a look at, for example, your newsletter email campaigns, if you're sending them out via a product like MailChimp, they will send around a weekly summary that shows you your click rate for campaigns. So it shows the client engagement that you're getting. That's a really quick reference as to how well you're hitting those KPIs, all you need to do is just have a look at the report and measure it against what your target was. Now, the next option, delegate. So you could set a KPI champion for your business who is in charge of tracking all of those KPIs and then reporting back to you on how you're going. So in this instance, we're not talking about just handing it off to someone else to do. You want to really make sure that that's still getting done because it's still your responsibility as a business owner to make sure you're still going on track to meeting your goals. Then if we look at manual, the good old spreadsheet. The traditional accountant in me can't go past a good spreadsheet for tracking KPIs. It does the job, but it is a very time-consuming process, so it might not be the best option, but if you don't have anything else out there, it's one way to go. And also, when we're looking at KPIs, you need to review them. So if you did attend our Budgeting Basics webinar last month, we did talk about how a budget is a plan and sometimes plans do change. So once you've set the plan, so your budget or your KPIs, if that's not working for your goals anymore or you're finding that you're not hitting them and you need to be tracking something else, have a look at changing your KPIs. They're not set in stone. They can be reviewed and they should be reviewed to make sure that you're on the right path.
Thanks, Stefan. Just one distinction there around delegation that we talk about. A lot of people associate the word delegation is they've given it to someone else and it's gone in bits and pieces. I want to reinforce that message that delegating isn't just handing it to someone and then forgetting about it. As you've shared there, Steph, it's still the responsibility to keep in track and review and be part of that process.
Paul, would you like to give us a summary for today?
Yeah, I can summarise things here, Steph, and then we can go to questions. And we've got a few regulars that have been on since we first started these back with Mark and I a few months ago about sort of how to build a stronger business to get through this environment. So going to tie back to that first session where we talked about putting things in perspective and having a bit of a plan in place and setting some goals. So what I'm going to sit there and go summarise here, then I'm going to give you a key takeaway to do yourself. I think it's really important that you take one action away from today and implement that into your business, and we can check in again in a month's time in our next session. So KPIs keep your business heading in the right direction. So without I suppose, as Steph shared, without that compass or map or guide, where do you actually know you're going? And the KPIs are there to give you an indication as quick as possible to know if you are on track towards those bigger parts of your business that you're trying to do it. KPIs can be financial and non-financial. As you've seen there, we shared some financial KPIs and non-financial KPIs that are relevant to businesses, and it impacts all those 10 hats in your business. So every single hat you see there, you can put KPIs in place. You can also do that with individual team members in their roles that they're performing within your business as well. And a system, without putting a system in place, and like we've talked about in previous sessions, without putting in step-by-step actions in a system and having a calendar reflect what you need to do, this will fall over at some point, because without a system, things will break. But if you have a system in place, you're more likely to achieve those goals, you're more likely to measure your KPIs, you're more likely to understand your critical drivers that drive the achievement of those KPIs and your goals in your business. So can't emphasize that word system so much. I'm going to try it. A system says there it's to save you. I've got on the whiteboard, it's save yourself time, energy and money is the acronym for system. So if you want to think about that in that filter.
It's all about keeping yourself accountable, isn't it, really? So you want to keep yourself accountable to getting those goals met.
Yeah, and it's small steps, Steph. It's something every day towards those bigger goals. Like if you look at it at the top of the mountain, that's impossible to get to. But if you take steps to get up each stage of it, it's probably more likely to be achieved because you've got a bit of a system and a plan in place to do it. We're going to touch base post this session. We'll send out a copy of this and also a couple of tips around, I suppose, a distinction about difference between KPIs and critical drivers for your reference that we've watched and shared on YouTube in bits and pieces. And then we'll contact you guys in the next couple of days to offer a chance to catch up with one of our advisors one-on-one for a complimentary 15-minute chat to talk about what KPIs could be relevant to your business in the current environment that it is in. And now I'll throw it open to if there's any questions that have come through, Steph.
We don't have any yet, but feel free to pop something in the chat box if you do have any questions. And in the meantime, what I might do is just do a quick poll for everyone that's here. So what I want to do is find out, do you monitor KPIs for your business? So if you could just pop your answers in there.
Honestly, Steph, I can say in our business a couple of years ago we weren't. It wasn't front of mind, or it wasn't done consistently. Since then, though, having a business plan in place with key projects that we're trying to achieve, we now monitor our KPIs on a regular basis under many hats in our business. And it does give me, as a leader, a lot more visibility about how we are performing and identifies things as quick as possible. And the key for me was the distinction around those critical drivers. Like, that was the missing piece for me when I was shared the example of what a critical driver is and why that linked to your KPIs. that's the number one takeaway, that if you take something away from today, it's the behaviours you need to do in a consistent and systematic way to achieve the goals, and have KPIs along the way to measure how you're tracking.
I'll end this poll now. So the results are, we've got 33% say yes, they're regularly monitoring KPIs, 16% occasionally, and 50% no. So it looks like there is still some work that can be done. So feel free to touch base with us after we send around some information, and we'll look to try and help you out with those.
Yeah. Thank you, Steph. If it's okay with you, Steph, I'd like to close off and thank everyone that's taken the time to attend today, and those that are watching it that couldn't attend, that actually reached out and asked if we could send a recording out because they couldn't make it along, which we will do. Steph, for your first live session, you've absolutely smashed it. So well done again.
Thanks, Paul.
On the preparation and what you've delivered today. And all the best to everyone over the coming days and weeks, and make sure you're looking after yourself and those close to you. And thanks again for your time.
Thanks, everyone. And we will be running another webinar. So these will continue on the last Wednesday of every month. If you do have any suggestions for topics that you'd like us to cover off on, please send them through to the inquiries@pursuitadvisors.com.au email address. And we look forward to seeing you in our next session. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.